Is everybody here?
Yes.
All right. I'll get it started then.
There, perfect. Thank you. You want to try this?
So what time are we gonna be through?
This period, what time does this period get out? 10:05, this period gets out, and then we'll have the other
10:05,
kids stay.
so we got about 40 minutes for this session, okay, all right?
Good morning. Why am I here? Why am I here? Everybody asks that question at some point in time in their life. Why am I here? Now, I want to share with you observations. There's two types of people in this world. Those that look down when they walk, and those that look up when they walk. When you're walking, start observing other people. Because those people that look down, they fail to see the mystery and the beauty of life. Those that are looking up get to see and appreciate everything that's around them. We brought Norm here to provide resources to this community. And that resource is knowledge, inspiration, excitement, and hope. So it's my desire that each and every one of you take something away from this experience. So when you're watching your next documentary, or in 25 years from now when your kids are growing up and going through school, you can say, I met that man, and I learned something from him. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Norm, and right before you guys leave, I'll share a little bit about our museum. And in the process, I'm going to be circulating so that you can actually hold a piece of history in your hand. This is a plug out of the Apollo 11 Command Module heat shield. The charged section that you see here was caused by heat from just rubbing air molecules because it's coming in so fast at 25,000 miles an hour. And so each one of you will have an opportunity to hold this in your hand, and I hope you appreciate the history and how many people that it took, because there were thousands of engineers, lawyers, accountants, artists, all trying to put a man on the moon.
Including janitors, James.
Thank you, sir.
People that cut the grass, you know.
So with that, Norm, why don't you get started?
Okay, just to follow up on that, there's an interesting story of one of our senior NASA executives who went to, hang on, I think it just, is it back?
Yeah, you're on.
Okay, I'm okay. Went to one of the mid-level manufacturing firms that was building one of the pieces that was going to be part of the space shuttle. And after he had listened to their presentations and he was walking around and talking to the machinists and, you know, just looking to see the cleanliness, you know, were they doing a good job of keeping the areas where the spacecraft parts were being, were they clean, because things going into the spacecraft have to be absolutely clean. But there was a janitor in there cleaning up, and so this guy, he was a flight controller named Jay Green. He asked the guy, he said, what's your job here? And he says, I'm helping build a spacecraft to go into space. He was a janitor, but he understood that his job was part of being on the team, and that was his job, and that was just a wonderful answer. Nobody had ever answered like that before. So when you get graduated from high school and hopefully from college, and any additional education you're going to have, and you go out into the world, you're going to be part of a team, and you need to understand what the goal of that team is that you're on, and just remember that you're part of a team and work as a member of the team, because the way things really get done, except in extraordinary circumstances, is by working with a team. I worked with a team for 55 years at NASA. I'm retired now, but you know, making the Mercury spacecraft, the Gemini spacecraft, the Apollo spacecraft, going to the moon, building the International Space Station, the Space Shuttle, and doing the planning for going back to the moon now and going to Mars, all done by huge teams, and there's sub-teams, and that kind of thing. So very important, you know, the idea of teamwork and working together as teams. So I just want to tell you, you know, James is talking about people that look up and people that look down, and I think early in my life I kind of count myself as one that not only looked out, but I looked up, because I was, that's where I was interested in going and being. Now, unfortunately, James, I'm one that looks down because I don't want to trip and fall down, because it's hard to get back up. But I do glance up occasionally to see where I'm going. But I did in the car coming down from Pendleton this morning, was absolutely stunned by the beautiful scenery and countryside. I've never been to Oregon before. I've been all over the United States, and Oregon is one of the states that somehow I had not gotten to, and I was just enchanted. I just see a little snow on your Christmas trees along the road, you know. I couldn't imagine, golly, there's Christmas trees out there growing wild. They're all over the place, you know, and they're covered with snow, and it's absolutely beautiful, and there's mountains and hills compared to Houston, which is flat as a table. You know, there's no elevation. The biggest mountain in the little town of Pasadena, where I live, is the garbage dump, where they take the garbage and cover it over with dirt and pack it down. So that's Mount Pasadena, I guess, but that's the highest thing in town. So it's just a delight to fly suddenly from Houston and land in this part of the world. It's so beautiful and so much different. But what I'm hoping to do is share with you a little bit of my experiences over the years that I was with NASA, some of the things I got to do, some of the people I knew and met, and that kind of stuff. But let me get a sense of who you are. Are you all high school students, or are there middle school people here too? So you're all high school. So is it a 4-year high school or a 3-year high school? So it starts with the 9th grade, and so are there any 9th graders here today? Okay, fair number. And 10th grade? A few. 11th grade? Wow. How many seniors here? Okay, so up front here. So you guys are getting ready to graduate, and so a year from now you'll be somewhere else. So and hopefully many of you will select to go on to a university kind of program, and then I can talk a little bit more about when you get to the university, if you go, things to do to maximize the value of that experience for you. Is there any, and I haven't had much luck with this question, is there any of you who come from a family who came across the plains in the 1850s or 1860s up the Oregon Trail, and so your roots go back to those kind of original settlers? Well, I want you to follow up, some of you, not all of you, but some of you, if you wish, to emulate and be like those folks who put their hopes in what they were doing. They bought themselves, somehow got a Conestoga wagon or something like that, put everything that they had in that wagon in St. Joseph, Missouri, or St. Louis, and came 2,000 miles over the plains and the mountains and the desert into Oregon to make a new life. And they couldn't bring everything they were going to need. You know, they had going to have to drink water all the way from St. Louis to Oregon. You can't bring all that water. You got to find water along the way. You can't bring all the food you're going to need. You know, you got to be very careful in your planning to bring the things that you absolutely need, and then live off the land as you go. And I would like for some of you to be involved in a similar activity, hopefully, if you think you would like to, because we're going to be looking for people that in the next 30 years, while you're still in the prime of life, that would like to go back and live on the moon, and not just go for a day or two like Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. The last crew was Dr. Jack Schmidt. He was a geologist. They stayed for about 4 days on the moon. But we're talking about actually building a settlement on the moon that would eventually, you know, house up as many as 125, 150 people, and people would cycle in and out of that thing, but it would be a permanent lunar base, and as the years passed, there would be additional lunar bases with other people until at some point in time, within a foreseeable future, within a couple of lifetimes, you could have a substantial number of people on the moon, and living there and permanently. And one of the things that's exciting to me, and which I know is going to happen, it's just inevitable, is that none of us, until we had the Apollo program and the precursor satellites that orbited the moon and took pictures, no one had ever seen the other side of the moon, because the moon presents the same face to the Earth all the time. But now we know what the backside looks like, and the astronomers have realized, boy, what a wonderful place to have an observatory on the other side of the moon, where we're blocked from any solar radiation, and you know, you really see a dark sky and all that kind of stuff. So the astronomers are just chomping at the bit to get to the moon and establish a very high quality observatory and scientific base on the far side of the moon, where you will have no direct telecommunication capability to communicate with the Earth. So the people were not going to stand for that, so we will have to have a communications satellite system around the moon, so that those people who are at this astronomical observatory can communicate back with the Earth. So that's just a small story of the scenario going forward as to what can happen, and I truly believe that's going to happen. In addition, we're going to go to Mars. I think we need to go to the moon first to learn how to do that before we take that giant step and go to another planet. And I'll talk about why that's the case in a little while. But I am a forward thinker in those kind of things. As a youngster your age, I read science fiction magazines and dreamed about things like going into space and being in zero gravity and going to the moon and going to Mars. And there was lots of fun to read about. But I knew that science fiction is exactly what that was. It was fiction, because that was never going to happen in my lifetime. So I was studying to be a chemical engineer. I was going to go into the petrochemical business. I was going to work in a refinery or a chemical plant of some type, and my aspiration was to eventually be president of that company and lead the activity. And so this is a really great week to come around and talk to space about you kids, because there's an amazing anniversary that has just happened. I want to bring to your attention on October 4th, which is just a week and a half ago or so, there was an amazing event that happened. And I don't know whether any of you know, in October 4th, 1957, 60 years ago, something happened that changed the world. And the answer as to what that was is that the people in the Soviet Union launched a little 28-inch diameter satellite called Sputnik. And it was a stainless steel ball that had some batteries in it, had 4 little antennas, and it went around the Earth at an altitude of about 350 miles. And all it did was go beep, 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 beep. Didn't measure anything, that's all it did. But if you decoded in your mind, if you decoded that beep, 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 what that was really saying was that this is the Soviet Union and look what we can do. And if we can put beep, beep, beep into orbit, what else can we put in orbit, including things that might threaten other people? So that brought a complete change in outlook of the entire world, particularly in the United States under President Eisenhower and then with President Kennedy. Within 2 weeks, NASA had been established. We were, working on building a satellite, and actually, a little over a month and 3 days after Sputnik went up, the United States launched its first satellite, which was actually a very complex device, Explorer-1 satellite, which actually did useful work and discovered useful things, because for years scientists knew that because the Earth has a magnetic field, that's why a compass works. When you go out and you say, man, I'm lost out this Oregon fir forest, which way is north, you know? So you can get your compass out and it tells you where north is, and that kind of helps you get oriented, you know? And you can verify that by seeing where the sun comes up and the sun goes down. But the Earth has a strong magnetic field. And one of the things that magnetic field does is if there are charged particles hitting the Earth, they tend to be captured by the magnetic field and deflected or held in the field. And so, but nobody had ever flown up to measure whether that was indeed the case. So the first Explorer-1 satellite that we launched verified these belts, and they were named after the gentleman who had first postulated they exist, Dr. Van Allen. So they're called the Van Allen belts, and you may have heard those mentioned in time. So it's belts of magnetic field around the Earth that capture this incoming radiation, and it's primarily charged particles. There's two classes. One is protons from the sun, which is like a hydrogen atom comes in, but it has a positive charge, and it gets captured in that field. If it wasn't captured, the rate of incoming of those solar protons can damage the nuclei in your cells over months and years, that kind of stuff. And the human race would not have evolved as we are today, might not have evolved at all, something like that. The other class is higher molecular weight things coming in called galactic cosmic radiation. They're very dangerous because they're so massive, so heavy, relatively speaking, to the proton, that when they hit you and pass through your body, they disrupt the nucleus of many of your cells and can cause mutations and serious things like that. So we exist, our life depends on the Van Allen belt being there. So one of the problems I had to think about as an engineer and later manager, trying to figure out how are we going to get to the moon, how are we going to get to Mars, how are we going to live there, what are the dangers? Some of the dangers are neither the moon nor Mars has a Van Allen belt, so you're subject to this radiation, which we can't stand. So we've got to have places to live and work and that kind of stuff that are not subject to that radiation. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. There's some interesting ways you can protect yourself. But I see it's inevitable based on the progress that we've made since in the last 60 years. October 4th, 1957, the space age started, and it's still going on. And look at all the things we've done. We have explored every planet in the solar system. We have gone into the asteroid belt, which is in between the planet Mars and the planet Jupiter. There's two very large mini planets out there. One is called Ceres, it's the largest. The other is called Vesta. We have explored them, and we now have a satellite in orbit around Ceres to look and see. It's about half the size of our moon. And so those things are out there and being explored. We have seen fabulous things. Just 2 years ago, we captured close-up photos of the final planet, Pluto. I've been a Pluto fan ever since I was a little kid, and we finally got to Pluto and took pictures, and it's a very interesting planet. It has a couple of moons, one that's fairly large called Charon, and another one that's just kind of looks like a lumpy baked potato. I can't remember its name, but we have gone to those places very close, taking pictures. We've had satellites in orbit around Saturn, taking gorgeous pictures of all its moons and the rings. We've had things around Jupiter for years, taking pictures of Jupiter and the giant red spot, that's a huge storm on the surface of Jupiter. We've landed things on Venus, very inhospitable planet. We've landed a number of